The crimson dust of Kepler's moon swirled around Marcus Webb's boots as he approached the skeletal remains of Research Station Omega 7. 3 years had passed since the facility's abandonment, and nature, or what passed for it on this barren, satellite, had begun reclaiming the compound. Twisted metal beams jutted from collapsed structures like broken ribs, and the persistent wind created an eerie symphony through the ruins. Marcus adjusted the scanner on his wrist, its blue glow cutting through the perpetual twilight. Salvage runs weren't glamorous work, but they paid the bills and kept his ship, the Wandering Heart, fueled and flight-ready. The station's quantum processors alone would fetch enough credits to last him several months, assuming the radiation hadn't fried them completely. He was 42 years old, weathered by a decade of hauling cargo across the Outer Rim territories, and had grown comfortable with solitude. The galaxy was vast and largely empty, which suited him fine. People complicated. Things brought emotional baggage he'd learned to avoid after losing his wife to a plague outbreak 5 years ago. Better to stick to simple transactions. Cargo in, cargo out, credits transferred. But as Marcus rounded a collapsed communications tower, his comm device crackled with an unexpected transmission. "Hello? Can anyone hear me?" The voice was small, fragile, unmistakably that of a child. "Please, if there's anyone out there, we need help." Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving to the blaster at his hip. The scanner showed no life signs, no heat signatures, nothing but cooling metal and radioactive decay. Yet the voice continued, clearer now, coming through an old emergency frequency that hadn't been used in years. "My name is Zara," the child continued, and he could hear the tears in her voice. "My mama is hurt real bad, and I don't know what to do. She keeps getting weaker, and I'm scared she might go to sleep forever like Papa did." Marcus's throat tightened. He'd heard plenty of distress calls over the years, most of them, from stranded miners or desperate pirates trying to lure good Samaritans into traps. But something about this voice, the genuine fear and innocence in it, struck him differently. "I can see your ship from here," Zara's voice whispered through the static. "It's small and white with blue markings, right? Like a bird? Please don't leave us. I promise we're not dangerous." That decided it. Marcus activated his transmitter. "Hey there, Zara. My name is Marcus. Can you tell me where you are exactly?" A sob of relief came through the comm. "Really? You can hear me? I've been calling for 3 days, but nobody answered. We're in the old storage bunker, the one by the big silver tower that fell down. There's a red door, but it's mostly covered by rock snow." Marcus consulted his scanner again, mapping the high area. The storage bunker would be on the station's east side, built into the moon's natural rock formations for protection against radiation storms. If someone had been hiding there for 3 days, they were either very desperate or very clever. "I'm coming to find you, okay? Stay where you are and keep talking so I can track your signal." "Thank you," Zara whispered. "Mama said humans could be kind, but I wasn't sure. Some of the others from our world, they said humans only bring trouble." As Marcus made his way through the debris field toward the bunker, Zara's chatter helped guide him. She told him about watching his ship land, about how excited she'd gotten when she saw it was different from the black ships that had been hunting them. Her words painted a picture of fear and loneliness that tugged at something deep in Marcus's chest, a protective instinct he'd thought long buried. The bunker entrance was indeed partially collapsed, with massive concrete slabs blocking what had once been a reinforced doorway. But Marcus could see a gap near the bottom, just wide enough for a small person to crawl through. He knelt and peered into the darkness beyond. "Zara, I'm at your door." A small light flickered in the depths of the bunker, and then he saw her. She was tiny, perhaps 8 years old, with pale lavender skin that seemed to glow softly in the darkness. Her hair was white as starlight, braided with small crystals that tinkled gently when she moved. Large, opalescent eyes stared up at him. With a mixture of hope and uncertainty, she was clearly not human, but her expression of desperate relief was universal. "You came," she breathed, crawling forward until she was close enough to reach through the gap. Her small hand touched his glove, and he felt a strange warmth even through the protective material. "I knew someone good would come eventually." "Where's your mama, sweetheart?" Zara's expression grew worried, and she glanced back into the bunker. "She's sleeping again, but it's the bad kind of sleep. She got hurt when the black ships came to our home. We've been running for weeks, but she keeps getting sicker." Marcus pulled out his emergency kit and began working to clear more of the entrance. "What's your mama's name?" "Naya. She's really pretty and smart, and she makes the most amazing crystal songs when she's happy. But she hasn't sung in a long time." Zara's voice grew smaller. "I miss her songs." It took 20 minutes to clear enough debris from Marcus, too. Squeeze through the gap. Inside, the bunker was larger than expected, carved deep into the moon's bedrock. Emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow, and he could see makeshift sleeping areas created from salvaged materials. In the far corner, on a bed of torn fabric and insulation, lay a woman. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. Zara hadn't exaggerated. Her mother was beautiful, even in her weakened state. She was tall and elegant, with the same pale lavender skin as her daughter, but marked by intricate silver tattoos that traced delicate patterns along her arms and neck. Her hair, a deeper shade of silver white, was matted with sweat, and her breathing was shallow and labored. Most concerning was the dark stains spreading across the makeshift bandages around her torso. "Mama," Zara whispered, kneeling beside the woman and gently shaking her shoulder. "Mama, the nice human is here. The one with the bird ship." The woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that shifted from deep violet to pale silver, like oil on water. Her gaze found Marcus immediately, and he saw intelligence there, along with the wary alertness of someone who'd learned that strangers often meant danger. "Who?" she began, but her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus set down his medical kit and raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "My name is Marcus Webb. Your daughter called for help, and I couldn't ignore that. I have some medical training, nothing fancy, but enough to help with basic trauma care. May I look at your injuries?" The woman Naya studied him for a long moment, her alien features unreadable. Finally, she gave a small nod. Marcus knelt beside her, carefully peeling back the blood-soaked bandages. The wound was deep, clearly from some kind of energy weapon, and showed signs of infection. Without proper treatment, she wouldn't survive another day. "This is going to hurt," he warned gently, pulling out antiseptic and fresh bandages from his kit. As he worked, Zara chattered nervously. "Mama's been taking care of me all by herself since Papa died in the war. She's really brave and strong, but she won't admit when she's hurt." "Are you married, Marcus?" The question was so unexpected that Marcus nearly fumbled the bandage roll. "What? No, I'm not married. Why do you ask?" Zara's large eyes were completely serious. "Because Mama needs someone to take care of her for once, and you seem really nice. Plus, you have kind eyes, and Mama always said you can tell a lot about someone from their eyes." "Zara," Naya whispered, embarrassment coloring her pale cheeks an even lighter shade. "Don't bother the human with such things." "It's not bothering me," Marcus said softly, securing the last of the bandages. "Though I have to say, that's the most straightforward proposal I've ever received." Despite her obvious pain, Naya's lips twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "She has no understanding of social conventions." "On our world," Zara continued, oblivious to her mother's mortification, "when someone saves your family, they become part of it. That's just how it works. And since Papa can't come back, maybe the universe sent you instead. Marcus felt something. Twist in his chest, an emotion he'd kept carefully locked away for years. Looking at this small family broken, hunted, but still clinging to hope and kindness, he found himself thinking thoughts he'd sworn off long ago. The immediate crisis is handled, he said, focusing on practical matters to avoid the uncomfortable feelings. But you need real medical attention, and this place isn't safe long term. I have a ship, and there's a medical station about 2 days from here. Naya's eyes filled with tears, though whether from pain or relief, Marcus couldn't tell. We have no money, no way to pay you. Who said anything about payment? Everyone wants something, she whispered, closing her eyes. In our experience, especially humans. The words stung, though Marcus understood where they came from. Not everyone, he said quietly. Sometimes helping is its own reward. Zara looked between them, then settled closer to her mother's side. See, Mama? I told you he was different. He has good heart music. Heart music? Marcus asked. It's what we call the feeling someone gives off, Zara explained. Most people's heart music is all sharp and grabby, but yours is warm and gentle, like Mama's lullabies. Marcus found himself smiling, despite the gravity of the situation. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. As he prepared to help move Naya to his ship, Zara tugged on his sleeve. Marcus, when Mama gets better, will you think about what I said? About staying with us? He looked down at the earnest little face, then at the beautiful, wounded woman who was trying so hard to be strong for her daughter. Something in his chest cracked open, letting in light he hadn't felt in years. I'll think about it, he promised, and meant it more than he'd expected to. The medical bay of the Wandering Heart was cramped but functional, designed for the kind of basic emergencies a cargo pilot might encounter in the Outer Rim. Marcus had never been more grateful for his decision to upgrade the diagnostic equipment. 3 years ago, even though it had cost him 2 months' worth of profits, Naya lay unconscious on the narrow medical bed, her breathing finally steady after the automated systems had pumped her full of broad-spectrum antibiotics and cellular regeneration stimulants. The pale luminescence of her skin seemed brighter now, less like a dying ember and more like starlight. Her silver tattoos, which Marcus had learned were called Velfara, and told the story of her family line, seemed to pulse gently with each heartbeat. Is she going to be okay? Zara asked for the 100th time, pressed against the observation window that separated the medical bay from the ship's small common area. Marcus looked up from his navigation console, where he'd been plotting a course to Meridian Station. The scanner says her infection is responding to treatment. She should wake up in a few hours, and then we'll know more. It had been 18 hours since they'd left the abandoned research station, and Marcus found himself studying his unexpected passengers more than he probably should. Zara was a marvel of barely contained energy, chattering constantly about everything she saw, asking questions about the ship's systems, and somehow managing to find wonder in the simple act of traveling. Through hyperspace, her mother was a different mystery entirely. Even unconscious, Naya possessed an otherworldly grace that made Marcus's chest tight whenever he looked at her. He'd seen plenty of non-human species in his years of cargo hauling, but the Etherians were rare in human space, and he was beginning to understand why they were beautiful in a way that seemed almost designed to inspire protectiveness. Marcus? Zara's voice interrupted his thoughts. Can I ask you something personal? He smiled, settling into the chair across from her. Everything you ask is personal, kiddo. What's on your mind this time? Were you lonely before you found us? Her large, opalescent eyes studied him with an intensity that was unsettling in someone so young. Your heart music has sad edges, like Mama's does when she thinks I'm not listening. The question hit him harder than expected. Marcus stared out at the swirling colors of hyperspace, considering how to answer. Yeah, he said finally. I suppose I was. I didn't really think about it much, but yeah. Mama's been lonely too, ever since Papa died. She tries to hide it because she thinks it makes me sad, but I can feel it in her songs. Zara scooted closer, her small hand finding his much larger one. Maybe that's why the universe brought us all together. So nobody has to be lonely anymore. Before Marcus could respond, his comm system chimed with an incoming transmission. The familiar face of Kane Morrison appeared on the screen, his oldest friend and occasional business partner, calling from the trading post on Cerberus Prime. Marcus, you beautiful bastard. Tell me you're bringing me something profitable. Kane's gravelly voice filled the cabin. I've got 3 buyers lined up for quantum processors, and old Hendricks is offering double the going rate for... He stopped mid-sentence as his eyes found Zara. Well, hello there. You're not Marcus's usual cargo. I'm not cargo. Zara giggled. I'm Zara, and that's my mama in the medical bay. Marcus rescued us from the scary broken place. Kane's eyebrows rose as he looked between Zara and Marcus. Is that so? Marcus, you old softy, picking up strays now? They needed help, Marcus said simply, though he could see the knowing look in his friend's eyes. We're headed to Meridian Station for proper medical care. Oh, and after that? Marcus hesitated, realizing he hadn't actually thought that far ahead. I will figure that out when we get there. Marcus is going to marry Mama, Zara announced cheerfully, causing Marcus to nearly choke on his coffee. At least, I hope he is. She needs someone to take care of her, and he's really nice. Kane's laughter boomed through the comm. Well, I'll be damned. Marcus Webb, confirmed bachelor and emotional hermit, brought down by a kid with a matchmaking scheme. I love it. It's not like that, Marcus protested, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. They were in trouble, and you could have dropped them at the nearest station and been done with it, Kane interrupted. Instead, you're personally escorting them to medical care and letting the little one plan your wedding. Face it, buddy, you're smitten. Before Marcus could formulate a denial, the medical bay's alert chimed softly. Naya was waking up. Mama. Zara pressed her face against the observation window as her mother's silver eyes fluttered open. Marcus quickly ended the call, ignoring Kane's knowing smirk, and headed into the medical bay. Naya was attempting to sit up, wincing as the movement pulled at her bandages. Easy, Marcus said gently, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. The healing accelerants are still working. How do you feel? Better, she admitted, her voice stronger than it had been in days. Much better, thank you. Her eyes found his and held them for a moment longer than necessary. I remember you helping me, but everything after that is foggy. You've been unconscious for almost a day. Your body needed time to fight off the infection. Marcus checked the readings on the medical display. The good news is that you're responding well to treatment. Another day or two, and you'll be fully recovered. A day or two. Naya looked alarmed. We can't impose on you for that long. If you could just drop us at the nearest station. Absolutely not. Zara interjected, somehow having figured out how to activate the comm system between the rooms. Marcus said he'd take care of us, and he keeps his promises. Don't you, Marcus? Marcus found himself caught between Naya's worried expression and Zara's expectant one. She's right, he said softly. I'm not abandoning you at some random station. We're going to Meridian, where there's proper medical facilities and, well, where we can figure out what comes next. Naya's eyes filled with tears, though she quickly looked away to hide them. Why are you doing this? You don't owe us anything. The question hung in the air between them, loaded with more meaning than the simple words conveyed. Marcus found himself studying her face, the elegant curve of her jaw. The way her silver tattoos seemed to shimmer when she was emotional. Maybe I'm tired of being alone, he heard himself say, the honesty surprising him. Maybe helping you helps. Me too. Something shifted in Naya's expression, a softening that transformed her from beautiful to breathtaking. I haven't thanked you properly, she said quietly. For saving our lives, for risking your safety, for being kind when the world has taught us to expect cruelty. You don't need to. Yes, I do. She reached out, her fingers brushing against his hand. Her touch was warm, electric, sending a shiver up his arm. On my world, we have a saying, Nel Fara Vin Tala. The heart remembers kindness when all else fades. What you've done for us, what you're still doing, it matters more than you know. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, a flood of warmth he'd kept carefully dammed for years. Tell me about your world, he said, settling into the chair beside her bed. I want to understand. And so Naya began to speak, her voice growing stronger as she shared stories of Etherier Prime, a world of crystal forests and floating cities, where her people had lived in harmony with their environment for millennia. She told him about the songs they wove into the very structure of their buildings, about the way children learned to speak by listening to the music in their parents' heartbeats. It sounds beautiful, Marcus said when she paused. It was. The pain in her voice was fresh, raw, until the war came. Until everything changed. What happened? Naya glanced toward the window where Zara had fallen asleep, curled up in the observation chair like a small cat. The coalition wanted our crystal. Technology, our understanding of harmonic resonance. When we refused to share it, they decided to take it by force. They called us non-essential life forms, said our planet would be better used for mining operations. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, hot and protective. That's monstrous. My mate, Davin, was part of the resistance. He died trying to protect our settlement. She touched one of the silver tattoos on her arm, a complex pattern that seemed to pulse with inner light. This one is for him, his story woven into my skin so he'll never be forgotten. I'm sorry. After he died, they started targeting families, taking children to study our genetic patterns. They said Zara was genetically valuable for their research. Naya's hand clenched into a fist. That's when I knew we had to run. Marcus reached out without thinking, covering her fist with his hand. You did the right thing. You kept her safe. I tried to, but I was so tired, so hurt, and she was so scared. Naya looked up at him, vulnerability naked in her expression. When I heard her calling for help on that old frequency, I thought we were going to die in that bunker. I thought I'd failed her completely. You didn't fail anyone, Marcus said firmly. You survived impossible odds to protect your daughter. You're the strongest person I've ever met. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands still touching, watching Zara sleep in the observation window. The ship hummed gently around them as it cut through hyperspace, carrying them all toward an uncertain future. Marcus? Naya's voice was soft, hesitant. What Zara said earlier about marriage. I hope you know she doesn't understand what she's asking. She just sees that we're both alone and thinks. She trailed off, color rising in her pale cheeks. That we could be alone together? Marcus suggested gently. She nodded, not meeting his eyes. She's 8. She doesn't understand how complicated the real world is. Marcus found himself studying her profile, the delicate curve of her ear, the way her white hair caught the light. Maybe the real world is more complicated than it needs to be. Naya looked at him then, surprise flickering across her features. What do you mean? I mean, maybe sometimes the simple answer is the right one. Maybe sometimes what looks impossible is just ... different. Before either of them could explore what that might mean, Zara's voice drifted through the system. thick with sleep but determined. "I can hear you talking about me," she mumbled. "And I do too understand about marriage. It's when two people decide to take care of each other forever and ever, like you're already doing." Marcus and Naya looked at each other, caught between laughter and something deeper, more dangerous. "Go back to sleep, little star," Naya said softly. "Only if you promise to keep talking to Marcus. Your heart music is getting less sad." As Zara settled back into sleep, Marcus found himself wondering if maybe, just maybe, an 8-year-old might understand some things better than the adults around her. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, for the first time in years, it filled him with hope. Meridian Station hung in the void like a glittering jewel, its rings rotating slowly against the backdrop of the Kepler Nebula. The medical facility was one of the finest in the Outer Rim, and more importantly, it was neutral territory, no questions asked, no records kept, payment accepted in credits or trade goods. Marcus guided the wandering heart into docking bay 7, his hands steady on the controls, despite the nervous energy thrumming through his veins. 3 days had passed since they'd left the abandoned research station, 3 days of growing closer to his unexpected passengers in ways that both thrilled and terrified him. "It's so beautiful," Zara breathed, her face pressed against the viewport as the station's lights played across her pale features. "Look, Mama, they have gardens inside the rings." Naya smiled, the expression transforming her face from merely beautiful to radiant. She was fully recovered now, moving with the fluid grace that seemed natural to her species, and Marcus found himself stealing glances at her whenever he thought she wasn't looking. "Hydroponic farms," she explained to her daughter. "They grow food and flowers to make the air sweet. We had similar ones on Ethieri, but ours sang as they grew." "Everything sang on your world, didn't it?" Marcus asked, finalizing the docking. "Sequence. Music is life to my people," Naya said softly. "We believe that every living thing has its own melody, and when they harmonize together, ... She gestured gracefully with her hands, as if conducting an invisible orchestra. "That's when magic happens. What's my melody?" Zara asked eagerly. Naya tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. Bright silver bells mixed with starlight laughter. Very beautiful, very joyful. "What about Marcus?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks as both Naya and Zara turned to study him. Naya's expression grew contemplative, her opalescent eyes seeming to look right through him. "Deep and warm," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Like distant thunder promising rain after a long drought. Strong, dependable, but with notes of ... longing. Old sadness mixed with new hope." Their eyes met and held for a moment. That stretched into eternity. Marcus felt something shift inside him, a recognition so profound it stole his breath. This was what he'd been missing, what he'd been searching for without even knowing it. "And yours?" he asked, his voice rougher than he intended. "Mama's is the most beautiful of all," Zara answered before her mother could respond. "It's like moonlight on water, all silvery and sad, but getting brighter when she looks at you." The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud, breaking the spell. Marcus cleared his throat and stood, suddenly needing to focus on practical matters before his heart did. Something irreversibly stupid. "Right, well, let's get you both checked out by proper medical staff, just to be safe. Then we can discuss what comes next." But as they prepared to disembark, the ship's proximity sensors began chiming urgently. Marcus frowned, checking the displays. 3 ships had just dropped out of hyperspace near the station sleek, predatory craft with the black hull markings of bounty hunters. "No," Naya whispered, her face going pale as starlight. "They found us." Through the viewport, Marcus could see the lead ship broadcasting something to the station's traffic control. Moments later, his comm system crackled to life. "Attention, wandering heart," came a cold, professional voice. "This is Vega Thorn of the bounty vessel Night's Edge. You are harboring wanted fugitives. Stand down and prepare to be boarded." Zara pressed closer to her mother, fear replacing the wonder in her large eyes. "Mama, what do we do?" Marcus felt something fierce and protective rise in his chest, a feeling he'd never experienced before. These people, his people now, he realized, were depending on him. Zara had called for help, and he'd answered. He wasn't about to let some bounty hunters tear apart the family. He was only just beginning to understand he wanted to be part of. "We run," he said grimly, his hands already flying over the ship's controls. "Marcus, no." Naya grabbed his arm. "They'll destroy your ship, your life. You can't risk that for us." He looked at her, really looked, taking in her beauty and strength, and the way she was willing to sacrifice herself to protect him even now. "Yes, I can. You and Zara ... You're worth the risk." Something blazed in her silver eyes, an emotion so intense it made his heart stutter. But before either of them could say anything more, the ship shuddered as the docking clamps released and Marcus fired the engines. "Warning, wandering heart." Vega's voice came again, harder now. "Failure to comply will result in the use of force." "Let them try," Marcus muttered, spinning the ship away from the docking bay and diving into the chaotic traffic patterns around the station. The chase began immediately. The 3 bounty hunter ships were faster and better armed than the Wandering Heart, but Marcus had been flying cargo runs through dangerous space for years. He knew every trick in the book. He dove between the station's rotating rings, using the massive structures to break target locks. He slipped through asteroid fields and radiation storms, places where the larger ships couldn't follow safely. But slowly, inevitably, they were being herded away from populated space into the dark between the stars. "Mama," Zara whispered, "I'm scared." Naya pulled her daughter close, humming softly one of the crystal songs she'd told Marcus about. Even in the midst of terror, her voice was beautiful, weaving harmonies that seemed to calm not just Zara, but the very air around them. Marcus found his hands steady on the controls, his panic crystallizing into cold determination. "Naya, are there any other Aetherian settlements out here? Anywhere they might not think to look?" "The sanctuary," she said suddenly. "It's a hidden station, a refuge for displaced people. But I don't know if it still exists, or if they'd welcome us." "Where?" She gave him coordinates, a location deep in the Veil Nebula, where sensor readings were unreliable, and most ships avoided the area entirely. It was a long shot, but it was better than nothing. The next hour was a deadly game of cat and mouse through space. Marcus pushed his ship beyond its safety limits, coaxing every erg of speed from the aging engines. Behind them, Vega's voice continued to crackle over the comm, alternately threatening and cajoling. "You're only making this harder on yourself," she said during one transmission. "The girl and her mother are wanted by the Coalition for genetic crimes. Turn them over, and you'll be rewarded handsomely." "Genetic crimes?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "The crime of existing while being different? The crime of carrying restricted DNA sequences. The child is a Class 5 genetic anomaly. She could destabilize entire ecosystems if her abilities manifest. She's 8 years old. She's a weapon waiting to activate. You're protecting a potential planetary threat." Marcus looked back at Zara, who was still curled in her mother's arms, humming along with Naya's lullaby. A weapon? This sweet, innocent child who asked about harp music and worried about her mother's loneliness? "You're insane," he told Vega. The response was a plasma bolt that barely missed his starboard engine. They reached the Veil Nebula as the Wandering Heart's fuel reserves dropped to critical levels. The bounty hunters had backed off slightly, wary of the nebula's notorious sensor distortions, but they were still there, waiting. There, Naya said suddenly, pointing to what looked like empty space. Can you feel it? The harmony in the cosmic background radiation? Marcus checked his instruments. Frowning. I'm not reading anything. Trust me. Please. He did. Without hesitation, he steered toward the coordinates she indicated. For a terrifying moment, it seemed like they were flying straight into a nebula wall. Then space rippled, like water disturbed by a stone, and suddenly there was a station dotted. Was beautiful in an otherworldly way, its architecture flowing and organic, rather than the harsh geometric lines Marcus was used to. It looked grown rather than built, with sweeping curves that seemed to sing, even in the vacuum of space. Sanctuary Station, Naya breathed. It's still here. A new voice came over the comm, warm and welcoming. Unknown vessel, you are in distress. This is Elena Vasquez, Sanctuary Keeper. We offer safe harbor to all who seek it. Thank you, Marcus said, emotion thick in his voice. We need it. As they docked at one of the station's organic-looking bays, Marcus felt something settle in his chest, a sense of rightness he'd never experienced before. Zara had stopped crying, looking around with renewed wonder. Nia's hand found his, squeezing. Gently. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. For choosing us. Marcus looked at her, at Zara, at the future suddenly spreading out before them like a star map waiting to be explored. I didn't choose you, he said softly. I think you chose me. Outside the viewport, the bounty hunters circled like sharks, but they couldn't penetrate Sanctuary's shields. Inside the station, people of dozens of different species went about their lives in harmony, living proof that different didn't have to mean dangerous. For the first time since his wife's death, Marcus felt like he was home dot, and as Zara sleepily murmured, See, Mama? I told you he was the right one. Marcus realized that maybe, just maybe, the universe had been listening to a little girl's prayers all along. The chase was over. The real journey was just beginning.